Hi there, I'm Suze Montgomery, your host, and welcome to Schmooze with Suze. We've been doing this for a lot of years. We've interviewed a lot of people that I find interesting, and I hope you do too. People of our community, politicians, good guys, bad guys, that kind of thing too. And interesting subjects. And tonight I'm interviewing one of my friends that I'm in awe of. Now, I don't get in awe very often at age 67, but I'm in awe of Banks Staples Pecht. Welcome.
Hi, Suze. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for being here. Now, I met you first through your husband, Ben, who's a pediatrician, family physician in town, who is one of my workout partners, working out. And I kept hearing him speak about you, and finally one day it was kind of like, Ben, do I ever get to meet this woman or what? So when I met you, you had even better stories than Ben.
Ha, thanks.
So I wanted to know all about you, and I am pretty much in awe, like I said, of you, your life, what you've done with it, your family history, the kids. So let's start at the beginning. You were born and raised where?
I was born in Laguna Beach, California. Okay. And then when I was about 4, my parents moved to the Monterey Peninsula, and I was raised in Pacific Grove in a 100-year-old white Victorian about 4 houses from the beach.
Idyllic.
It was
childhood.
Wonderful. It was white picket fence, the
whole bit?
Although I must say we had a dachshund and a chicken, and they both sat on our front porch together. So there was a little bit of crazy too.
Crazy works.
Crazy works well.
So you moved from there, or you lived there throughout your childhood?
Yes, really? Throughout my childhood, and actually my mom is still there.
Okay, so you go off to school?
Yes, so I went to an all-girls high school there in Monterey, and then from there I went back east to school where I met Ben at Princeton.
Why did you decide to go back east?
Because my whole family's from the East Coast.
Okay.
So my mom and dad actually met at a debutante ball at the Plaza Hotel.
This sounds like a novel.
I know, isn't it great? And my dad said when the elevator doors opened, the lights dimmed and the spotlight came up on my mom.
No wonder she's a writer. Okay.
And so so their story is he went into the Marine Corps, and they were relocated out to Southern California, where he flew helicopters in Vietnam.
Okay.
That's how we ended up there. But my mom was a New Yorker, my dad's a Connecticut guy, and I felt that I had ties to the East Coast, and I wanted to get my feet wet on another coast.
So what did you decide to pursue?
So I went to Princeton, and I was undecided at first, but I knew I wanted to do liberal arts of some kind.
Okay.
And so I ended up majoring in history with sort of an unofficial minor in medieval and Renaissance studies and art history.
What were you going to do with this?
I was passionate about it, and to
you
my
just
parents,
loved it.
I loved it. And to my parents' credit, they said, "We are sending you to school for 4 years to learn how to think."
Wow, your parents are very progressive.
They are. I'm very, very lucky. And so I studied history, and I learned, and think about current events and how much history plays into current events. And if we were all historians, perhaps we'd have more perspective.
Well, current events is history after a certain period of time.
That's exactly right. And it's based on history, and we're all part of history. So I think the idea that history is dates and numbers was not how I viewed it. I viewed it, and maybe this is why I do love writing, it's a story. What are the stories that we can take from history?
Well, your stories are, I want to show the audience and speak to this. You wrote this story, and when I read it, you sent it to me. It's called The Loveliness of Ladybugs. It's a story about you gave birth to your twin boys. Now you've got a daughter, and she's older.
She is. Marty, she's 11 now.
And she's going locally to schools.
Yep. She is having a blast at Cabrillo Middle School, where she is absolutely sucking the marrow out of life and playing instruments and having wonderful teachers and just loving it. That's great. Thank you, Cabrillo Middle School.
Yeah, I love to watch you with your kids too, because the way you interact with your children is not typical. You give them so much freedom of thought. I mean, the other night when we were having dinner, Evan leans over to the table and starts talking about, I like DNA. So let's start back with the boys.
Yes.
Let's do a little backtracking. We'll get back to the DNA, which is an unusual subject for a child. So when you were pregnant with the boys, you had complications.
I did. So when I first found out I was pregnant with twins, we had a trip to France planned, actually, with my mom. It was her birthday, and she was taking me and my brothers to France. And I had just found out I was pregnant with twins, which is a terrible idea when you're going to France, because you can't eat wine. I mean, drink wine or eat cheese.
Now, first of all, do you have twins in the family?
No. So it was totally
Big surprise.
spontaneous. It was a
Okay.
big surprise. And so I had some complications on that trip that caused me to have some reduced activity. But then other than that, it was a fairly uneventful pregnancy. You know, I had a 2-year-old, so I was exhausted.
Right.
But for the most part, it was, you know, uncomplicated. I went in for my regular checkups. I had had a checkup with the, you know, sort of advanced high-risk perinatologist that week, and everything looked great. I was right where I was supposed to be. And then out of the blue, on Saturday, December 2nd, 2006, I went into labor, and they couldn't stop it, and the boys were born that night by emergency C-section.
Now this has got to be very traumatic for not only you as a mom, with the fear thing, but also for Ben, who's a physician.
It was horrible for both of us.
I can't even imagine, because they were, how big were they when they were born?
They were 25 weeks along, so they were about 1.5 pounds. They were about the size of a Barbie doll.
Oh my God.
And so, you know, they came out and they were intubated, and there were 2 neonatal teams there, and from Community Memorial, who were fantastic care. And they intubated my boys and got them all hooked up to the machines and restarted their hearts. And
how is it to go in there every day, to go visit them? And I mean, you can't hold them.
No, I couldn't hardly touch them.
I mean, these are your babies.
Yeah, I know. It was a story unlike what most of us think of. It was not the sort of diaphanous, fuzzy pictures in the mothering magazine that we all want and hope for. There was a huge element of grief. It was a strange process, because it's a hidden world that people don't see. So we don't have a cultural vernacular for it. There's not a conversation around preemie parenting, NICU parenting, that kind of thing. And so there's not a lot of community around it. And then those who do know about it don't really know how to treat it. Is it a birth? Is it a death? There's grief, but you should be happy and hopeful. But you feel like you should be happy and hopeful, but you feel grief.
You're suspended in limbo here.
That's exactly right, and it's exhausting. There's a lot of emotions that swirl around that. And so when they were first born, you know, we would walk in and ask the nurse, you know, may I touch him? And she would say, with one finger. And then they would look at the monitors, and then they would decide if it was stressing him too much, either one of the boys, and then I would take my finger off. And cry.
Ben's, you know, here he is, impotent to do anything. And I mean, he's a healer. This is what he was trained to do. This is his life passion.
That's exactly right. And he did a beautiful job of compartmentalizing everything. I mean, Ben is the strongest person I've ever met. He would go, and especially he was back at work within a week. And so he would go in and care for other people's children beautifully, and then going round on children that he was his patients that he was caring for in the NICU, you know, because the NICU docs take care of everything, but he would, you know, go in and round and check in and see how everybody was doing, and then he would take off his badge and go across the room and sit with his kids.
And come home blown away, devastated.
You know, it was
the two of you.
You just do it. You just do it.
So
failure is not an option at that point. We had a 2-year-old who needed her mom and dad, and we had babies whose entire lives depended on us keeping it together.
I encourage all of you, if you get a chance to read it, it's a very small, short story, but it's very, very heartfelt. And it was published in Brainchild magazine, and it's the spring of 2015. And again, it's The Loveliness of Ladybugs. I had to stop periodically throughout this, and like our next guest, I sat there with tears, because it was so heartfelt, and your writing is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
And that was not your first, you know, love was not writing. I mean, you were a historian.
Although there was a large writing component to everything I've always done. You know, I looked back at some old high school report cards the other day, and it was all about writing. My mom did.
Oh, okay.
And it was all, you know, it was all about writing, and it was, you know, and I wrote a 150-page senior thesis, and then I went into a writing profession and, you know, became a lawyer. So, you know, I think so much of what I've done has been writing and has been verbal, but hasn't been this type of writing. Writing this was a real labor of love. It was hard. A lot of tears. I shed a lot of tears in the process of, you know, unpeeling the onion to get to the point of being able to write that piece.
You're so diverse and so complex, and in such a great way. You both got right and left brain going at the same time.
Thank you.
That's like maybe what, less than 3% of the population?
I shudder to
Very
think.
unusual to be able to do both.
Thank you.
And I can see reflected in the kids, they're the same way. They've got the same talents. These kids are going to be something. I mean, not only the boys, but Marty too. I mean, and when I was watching them the other night, I was thinking about how you explained when your parents gave you the freedom of thought and action to be able to explore things with no fear, just to go out there and do it. And you're doing it with the boys. I mean, the conversations, I mean, small children don't have conversations on DNA.
Well, you know, Ben and I really believe that if given the space, kids come to their own
They find
solutions.
their own level?
They find it. They do, and the level is different. You know, we're people of inquiry. We're souls of curiosity. You know,
we don't encourage this in our children,
we
though.
don't. There are
Banks.
special places that do, though. And if I can, you know, having our children at Oak Grove School out in Ojai completely transformed how I parent. So it was a
That's
real
interesting.
partnership about learning about the power of inquiry and creating space around learning. And that making mistakes means you're learning.
Well, there's no such thing as mistakes. You know, it's no mistakes, no coincidence, no accidents. It's an opportunity to learn something new, maybe a skill or maybe some other learned thing, but mistakes are always positive, I think.
That's exactly right. There's no fear of failure when there's
you
no
already
negative
done it.
consequence.
You know
Yeah,
it. You've done it.
That's exactly right.
And you
That's
can just
exactly
turn it into something else.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something that's kind of sensitive to you, but I think you'll probably be okay about this.
Sure.
You were diagnosed with MS.
Yes, it
When?
is not a secret. I was diagnosed with MS 8 months before the boys were born.
I can't even imagine. I mean, and carrying the boys.
2006 was a bellwether year.
God, I don't know how you
Yeah.
struggle through this.
That was a real challenge. I had my first episode when I was still practicing law with a large law firm in San Diego. So I went numb on half my body. I was hospitalized, had full 3 or 4 days of tests and radioactive isotopes and MRIs and the whole 9 yards, and they ultimately found a lesion on my spinal cord that was knocking out sensory processes on the right side of my body. And at which point the neurologist said, there are 3 options. You will either get your sensation back, you will not get your sensation back, or you will get some of your sensation back. And I thought, well, that pretty much covers it.
Wow.
And so thankfully, I got almost all of it back. And then the big question mark was whether it was actually the first presentation of MS or an isolated event. And so we kept monitoring it over time. And then in 2006, they were definitively able to diagnose MS by MRI.
So now you have to live on meds?
Yep.
And they say, I don't see anything.
Well, I'm healthy, you know, and my MS diagnosis has, my experience with MS and with the boys has led to so much deep learning about our power to build resilience and our choices in building resilience. One of those choices being the language we use. You'll never hear me say, well, rarely, I may have said it tonight, but I try not to say I have MS. I try to say I was diagnosed with MS.
Big difference.
It's a big difference. And
Yes.
you know, when people say you look so healthy, I'm like, I am healthy. I have a diagnosis that I'm managing. And when I'm symptomatic,
well.
I manage it. And when I'm asymptomatic, I manage it. And it is an exercise in living in the present. And I feel both feet on the floor today. And there was one day when I didn't. So, you know, how do you do that?
Something.
But it was, you know, well, yoga, and it's really what's brought me to coaching, you know, as sort of life has come.
Is that what you're doing now?
That's what I'm doing now.
Okay,
And
explain to me what coaching is.
so coaching is a process by which it's a really powerful professional relationship where I work with my clients to be their best advocate and really thought partner with them to create clarity around major life or professional transitions.
Oh.
So it's looking at purpose, potential, possibility, and performance. And so the beauty of coaching, and this is what really has, I think it's the perfect marriage of my total.
It's all your careers.
It's all my careers wrapped together, and this incredible soul piece that I got from my experiences with the boys and with having a chronic illness. So it's the ability to really drop in with my clients and be empathetic and present and just be their best advocate, while at the same time letting my lawyer brain kick in and say, okay, well, let's challenge that a little bit, or how can we ask some powerful questioning and create some clarity around what the facts are, what the emotions are, what emotions are motivating change, what emotions are impeding change, and then craft strategies and accountability to create forward momentum.
How do people find you?
I am on LinkedIn. I'm building a website. I can certainly put my phone number up if people are interested.
Yeah, I definitely think the audience would like to know how to reach you.
I have a nationwide client base. I do work by Skype and by phone, and I obviously see people live when I can. And my clients have, given me the feedback that when they work, they come in feeling like there's a lot of churn or overwhelm, and through working through together, they've created new awareness or clarity and feel that they now have the momentum and the motivation to create some really powerful change. It's the best job in the world. I
bet.
Love it.
Well, it utilizes
so
like
great.
all your talent and all your learning.
It does. It's the mix
And
of,
you're
as
doing
you're saying,
something positive.
yes, and you're creating. And it's, so there's nothing more rewarding than co-partnering with another soul as we navigate this world together.
Well, that's what marriage is all about,
Isn't
too.
that the truth? Yes, it's that left brain, right brain piece. So.
Well, you're perfect for it.
Thank you.
Let's talk about another aspect of your life. You have so many aspects. I don't think we're going to get to them all. You sing.
I do. I came out of the womb singing. So I am now with Sweet Adelines International.
What's your range?
Well, I've been voice tested up to a soprano 1, but I typically tend to sing in the alto 1 range.
So you've got a pretty good range.
I do. And I sang a cappella in college. I was a member of the Princeton University Tigressions and was our tour manager, and we toured all over the world, and then was looking for somewhere to play and sing. And when I was in San Diego, I discovered Sweet Adelines through a roommate, and it's competitive barbershop singing. And it is the best fun ever.
Now, can you travel with this now with the kids and everything?
Well, not with the
tougher?
kids, but I have traveled last year. So there are choruses and quartets that compete. The chorus that I was in San Diego won the international championship.
That's big.
That was really big. It's the Olympics of what we do. So we won
That's
in 2002, and that was in Portland. I've competed in Atlanta, Nashville, Portland, Seattle, Baltimore. Groups come from Sweden, groups come from Japan, Canada, Australia, England. There are 23,000 women who do this worldwide.
Seriously?
There is so much opportunity, this is right up your alley, for learning, lifetime learning. You can learn to be a director, you can learn to be an arranger, you can learn to be a judge, you can learn the musicianship. It's such a high level of musicianship, and it's considered the black belt of a cappella singing. It is so much fun. So I'm in a chorus now called Carpe Diem up in Santa Barbara.
Okay, I was going to say, is this locally?
Yep, so in Santa Barbara, we recently chartered just last year, and in our we have 25 singers right now. We're always looking for women who love to sing to come check us out. In our first foray out of the gates, won our regional contest last spring, so we're now getting ready for international in Las Vegas next fall. And my quartet, Cheers, won our regional 2 years ago and competed and ranked internationally when we competed in Baltimore.
This is huge.
So
do you have to practice quite frequently?
We do. We rehearse. We laughingly say it's one night a week, but of course, with anything that's high achieving, it can definitely morph into more than that.
Yeah.
But it's such a joy because how many opportunities do we have as women to be in an organization that pushes you up and empowers you and supports you and the community? We say you come for the singing and stay for the friendships. I mean, it really is the most extraordinary organization of women I have ever been a part of.
I'm so happy to hear you say this because I'm a big promoter of women's, mostly politics. I get involved in that. I like to see more women in office. My generation, which is the generation before you, probably your mom's generation, we really didn't have the opportunities to be able to do this with each other. I mean, we all had young families, so we were mom and we were wife and we were working and we all had other careers, but we didn't really do anything for ourselves. I think that was a huge disadvantage looking at that. Now, retrospectively, would I have changed it? Yes, that would have been one of the things I would have changed, but there was no opportunity really. And then our previous generation, my mother definitely, I mean, even though she was educated, she was still mom. She was at home. So she had no opportunities as well. And we were trying to break out, us 60s kids were trying to get out there, especially the females, and try to get involved. But every time we got pulled back, it was like the Sopranos, got pulled back in again. But it was kind of an interesting time where later on when we had more freedom, and I think, I only got that with age. Now that I'm a certain age, I think I'm getting a lot smarter. Maybe, I hope I am at least. But a lot of opportunities that I will take today and a lot of risks. Now, your generation, you do risks every day. we're too controlled to do that. I mean, our generation really doesn't take the risks unless you really break out and do something unusual. But the risk taking is, when I do it, I'm like, wow, did I do that? That's pretty special. But I wasn't raised to be that way. It was still, even though my generation was more or less, we did get educations, but we were supposed to still be moms. And we were always, and it was always, we were the perfect mom. And there was an old cigarette commercial. What was it? Bring home the bacon and we could fry it up in the pan. I think it was Tarleton cigarettes or something like that, something really bad. But I remember things like that, thinking to myself, wow, that's pretty cool, but I don't know if I could do that.
And it's interesting you say that, because I agree with you. I think there's a lot more opportunities now. It's absolutely true. The challenge that's inherent now, I think, for women of my generation and those coming up through the ranks is the navigating now where there is less of a paradigm, how you're going to balance work and family.
Absolutely.
And I don't know
tough.
if you're familiar with Anne-Marie Slaughter, but she just wrote a fabulous piece for The Atlantic it was a couple years ago, called Why Women Can't Have It All. And her target audience is very specific, given The Atlantic, but there's some really interesting arguments about how we have now added the professional opportunities for women, but the caregiving has not shifted or dropped away.
No, it's still there.
And so this idea, and I would argue not why women can't have it all, none of us can have it all. We're just navigating this the way we can.
But we can have more.
We can have more, that's exactly right. And so, I think that's going to be the challenge for our generation and those generations following.
To balance it all out.
And how to make it so that more men can participate in other areas as they want to.
You seamlessly do this. I mean,
I'd
and you
encourage
make
you
it
to talk
look
to
totally
Ben about that.
effortless. I'm watching you with the kids, I'm watching you with Ben, and you're juggling about 20 balls at the same time, and you do it so easily. In our day, it was like, our day, it wasn't that many years ago, but it was also, you always felt guilty if you said no as well. And it was kind of like, well, I don't really deserve to have this. And as you get older, I think the freedom of age probably, definitely motivates you to do different things. And also the thing that we were talking about before, fear. The fear thing is, it's like I would be afraid to fail. I was fortunate enough to grow up pretty much on my own, so I didn't have, parenting. My dad died early and my mom was mostly there. But the fear thing, it was always, I faced fear at 5 years of age. And I, was like, can I do this? Yeah, well, nobody's here to tell me no, so I'm going to try it anyway. But you had the luxury, thank God, of backup with the folks, and also no fear. I mean, you are fearless.
Thank you.
You are absolutely amazingly fearless.
Thank you.
And I can see it in Marty too. I mean, Marty, your daughter, has a business.
Yes, she does. Marty Cake's Cupcakery. She decided
she's making money.
She is. It's a little, out of our kitchen. She sells cupcakes to friends and family, and she has her little hot pink KitchenAid mixer, and she researches her recipes, and they're darn good.
Well, the best part is you charge her for overhead.
We do. She pays a percentage for cost of doing business. It's not what her actual costs are, but we want her to understand that it's not all pure profit. So
it's
she
value.
Gets us 25% of all gross.
I totally love this. This is a brilliant idea, because she understands the value of things as well, but also the responsibilities that comes with the value.
And she also understands that she has our support. I mean, we're clear about the fact, this doesn't cover everything, but it's important to understand, oh no, Mom, I get it. Like, I have to pay you for.
How do we replicate you and Ben? I mean, how do we replicate you and Ben? Seriously. You're amazing on your own, both of you, but you're amazing as a couple. It's just, it's a joy to watch you guys.
Thank you. He's my biggest treasure. He's an amazing guy.
I can see why. He's such a sweetheart. He's such a good guy, and I love the way he loves you.
Thank you.
I get to watch that a lot, because we have our conversations on the Stairmaster in the morning, and I get to talk to him about that a lot.
He's a big, beautiful heart, and he's full of unconditional love, that man.
He is. He's great. You guys, and you met when you were 18?
I know, and I held on to that with both hands.
How did you know?
We both just knew. We both did. We've said that. We wondered about that. Like, how do you know when you're 18? And
you don't know anything when you're 18.
I didn't know anything, except I knew he was home. That was the feeling we both got. This is, that's it.
Yeah, instant recognition, like dad and mom?
Yeah, like dad and mom. You know, I mean, I'm sad to say that dad and mom's relationship didn't survive. You know, they divorced after 34 years of marriage.
That's hard to understand too.
You know, but you know, life is
But
long.
you were an adult when that happened.
Yeah, life is long and full of challenges, and you know, and they're both now happily remarried and in great partnerships. And it's, you know, we all have our journeys, and I just look at Ben and I'm like, my intention is to go the long haul with this one.
Oh, you bet. When you find the right one, you don't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way about John. There's challenges, but you know, he's my best friend.
Absolutely.
What, you know, I'd be devastated
Well,
if
I feel like
didn't
anyone
have
who'd
him.
put up with me.
Oh,
deserves
John
an
too.
award.
John deserves a Nobel Prize. Let me tell you, he'd get the Nobel Prize for that one. He is a great guy too. Well, we're just about out of time. I can't tell you how grateful I am you came on the show and shared your life.
Thank you so much for inviting me,
honey,
Suze.
I love
it's really
you.
an
It's
honor.
easy.
It really is an honor. It's so fun.
I'm so honored to be your friend. I love you too.
Love you.
Come back next week. I'm starting to cry. Here we go again. I do this periodically. Come back next week and join us again, and we'll have other people that you want to know, or people you should know, or people in our community that have definitely made an impact, like Ben and Banks. And I get the book, or get the article, Brainchild, Spring of 215, and get The Loveliness of Ladybugs if you want a good read and a good cry. Thanks for being here. Thank you.